Hey, Tex.
Luke, my friend, how are you?
I'm all right. Name this sigh. What type of sigh is that?
Shortness of breath, SOB. You call me a son of a bitch?
Exactly. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here with this SOB, Mr. McQuilkin. He's here with this SOB, Luke Summers. We are not here. Oh, and with this SOB, Bobblehead John. That's right. Today, we are addressing the hotline. This is a crew episode of the premier podcast in strength and conditioning. Ooh, I beat you on the second one. You were the third one.
Oh,
whatever. That's right. We're going to the hotline. We're taking some text messages because John doesn't like the text messages. He likes to listen to the voicemails.
yeah. I can't blame him.
Why?
Because we get to hear the unique voice and sounds of that,
So you want me
that great Tim Wacker guy.
Great golf ball whacker guy. But ladies and gentlemen, that's right. We have a hotline. We answer your questions. It's dedicated to your training inquiries, your nutrition inquiries, whatever the deal is. We will put some thought into it and get you some answers.
Yeah, what we used to do in Instagram Live, hey, ask some questions and we'll answer it. But then
right.
maybe 150 plus questions per.
Next thing you know, it's a 12-hour podcast, and we've only got through the intro. So now
It's good.
This time we
dedicate
one episode to one question.
Correct. So we can give everyone their due.
Yeah. So if you got a question, don't hesitate to call us. 929-464-4640. That's 929-ING-0. That's right. You can text us too. So we're going to be taking some text today, or a text.
Episode.
Oh, yeah. Hang on. Don't want that one. No, definitely don't want to read that one. Oh, okay. Here we go. Oh, this is kind of a long one. Okay. So this is coming from Jim.
GYM?
Yeah. What's a guy? Bittersweet, bitter sob story for you fellas. I lost my job because of this whole lockdown thing back in June. Huh. That sucks, dude.
Damn.
That's the bitter. Thanks to you and my home gym and all of this new free time, my gains have been amazing. And
I like his attitude.
I'm absolutely thrilled to report that I just landed a new and better job. There we go. That's the sweet. So bittersweet, the sweet. Now on to the other bitter. I need to move and I won't have access to my home gym for at least a few months. And all gyms are shut down in my new home area. Is it possible to still get gains with just body weight training? Bye, Jim.
Where do we begin?
I have some ideas.
Okay.
Number one, for Jim, I always like to just kind of back it out because not everybody's Jim. Let's say you are listening to this and you do want to give advice to some folks. If you're a novice and you've never really worked out, a body weight training regimen is going to really, it'll work.
Oh, 100%. There are plenty of research studies to back up that everything works. You can perform only leg press, or I believe the most famous study, it was bicep curls.
Yeah, you were doing bicep curl, so you tested one arm leg press or leg extension.
Curl. Yeah, leg extension. You're right.
Leg extension. And let's say you stacked up 45 pounds of plates on there, and you got one. Then what did they do?
Bicep curls.
All bicep curls for
6 weeks.
6 weeks. Then they came back and their leg extension got stronger. Not even training legs.
Nope.
There you go. So that's the program. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we call that one field strong.
Well, I'll tell you this. You know what a gymless leg extension is?
No.
If performed correctly, a little sissy squat.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Body weight. So, excuse me. So, for a novice, and this is why Tybo, this is why P90X, this is why a lot of those folks who are well-intended in getting people who don't have a healthy relationship with fitness, to get them in shape, they offer a 90-day guarantee. It so happens that a novice athlete will see almost any stimulus will drive positive training responses for a 90-day approximate window. So can body weight exercises get you gains? Yes. Here's the sad caveat, though, for my guy Jim. If you've been banging weights in your home gym and you've had serious gains since, what did he say? So June or July, to August to September to October to November. 5 months of serious gains. He's well beyond the novice window.
Well, I got good and bad news.
What's that? You saved a bunch on your car insurance?
No.
Okay. So you're paying a ton?
Yeah.
Do we have an insurance broker out there for techs?
Losing my train of thought, and I've regained it. Okay. So he's 3 months without, this is back specific to Jim. Can we bounce him for?
Where do you want to go?
Okay. Quickly, back to Jim. He's out of a gym for 3 months. He's had 5 months to accumulate a lot of muscle mass and progress and strength.
Right. Gains.
Good news is the principle of reversibility. It'll take about that time if he did nothing to then lose said.
Yeah.
So if we have a 3 month window, we can supplement body weight. He's not going to progress on there, but good if he maintains a certain level of fitness, and we'll give some movements and exercises and training styles that he can do. But the good news is he's not going to lose as much as he thinks he will.
Yeah,
he's worried about.
And this is that's a great point to look at it, Tex. Like typically gains, we're thinking about like if we were to chart it, gains is the slope is positive, the line is going up, right? As time on the bottom increases, your gains are going up. And that's what I saw you draw your chart there. So let's pretend this is linear, okay?
Right.
So with
the x-axis,
you got a slant up.
Right.
And then reversibility says when you get to a high point, the slope is about the same going slanting down. So it looks almost like a little triangle. And that's assuming you applied no training stimulus. So what we're talking about now for Jim, the good news is your form of gains is changing that negative slope.
Right.
So that you slant up, and as it starts to slant down, because you're just not going to have access to the right amount of stress to maintain strength and power and things like that. If we can just not make it, you slow the what's the opposite of gains? Losses? You slow your losses.
Right.
That's your gains.
I'm trying to get creative, combining maintain and gains. Gains, but that's not going to work, guys. But just maintain to the best of your abilities.
You play the gains game, which is salvaging as much gains as you can.
Very true. I mean, 3 months and then.
So here's what it is. It's a money booth. Tex. Okay, here's so your 5 months has been stacking up money into your money booth, right?
Okay.
And then you're in that money booth where all of a sudden the wind starts to go. And is that my line? We got a hotline. We do have a hotline. And then I know I was standing on this. Watch. See what I'm doing? Can they hear that, do you think? Well,
yeah.
Anyways, so you're in that money booth.
I'm in that money booth.
You're trying to grab as much as you can.
Show me the money.
Right. So to maintain as much gains as possible, knowing that this physiological, biological principle of reversibility is you're about to become beholden to it. Doing nothing, you will get losses. But doing something, you minimize losses.
Correct.
Now, is that for even novices? I think it's different for them.
Yeah. It certainly will.
Because it's quick, ripe, quick rotten. So those gains go away a lot faster. And that's why people who quit after the 90 days are stuck back where they started. It seems like 90 days later. Yeah. And then to get back onto it, they don't have the same slope as the first 90 days. Right? Depending on what their training stimulus was.
Their next 90 day or run up will not peak as high as the first one.
Assuming it's this body weight, low intensity, high volume approach. Okay, so.
Yeah, novice aside, this is a trained gentleman. We talked about the reversibility. Now for the specialist, someone
who's had decades of training.
Yeah, they'll maintain their movement, their skill. And I believe the biggest worry there is the tendons, the joints getting back into the pressure that lost.
Got it.
So the dynamic ability, that's like the old bros heading back to the old alumni game. And then, the pops and the cracks, they start to come back because they're moving at an intensity in which. But if they're able to maintain moderate amount of movement and then the elasticity, some form of lengthening and strengthening, maybe it's not to the dynamic explosiveness as their specialist or their Olympic lifting or their former sport athlete, they'll be in a position to then not lose.
All right, so what do
bodyweight training.
Bodyweight training 101. I guess we haven't really well, here's the thing. Here was our solution is bodyweight's not enough. It can be for a little bit, but it shouldn't be. So Jim, I'd recommend, we're going to get into a bodyweight protocol. I think we'll flesh that out in real time here as we workshop it.
Yeah.
But this is the exact reason. This was our response with Third Monkey. And it takes a really dedicated type of individual who's using this training and needs the training. And when there is a will, there is a way. With about $50, you can outfit your home with about 500 pounds of gear.
Yeah.
It's crazy. 500 pounds for about $50. And you're going to do that in the form of cinder blocks, 5-gallon buckets, powdered concrete. We got some bungee cords in there, all things you can get at a hardware store, which is going to be open during the pandemic lockdowns. And people maintained and even gained on this program that we call Third Monkey. So my recommendation is, let's say you want to kick off $50 and you have a 10 foot by 10 foot area to work out, an 8 foot by 8 foot.
Yeah. I mean, apartment balcony, very.
Yeah.
That was a lot of the environment that we had people training in.
And you want to get some work gloves because the cinder blocks can be unforgiving, right? In terms of any soft skin areas. So that training program will get you gains.
Yes. And main reason is we were forced to get creative, and that's when Luke and I are about to go into some bodyweight protocols with getting creative with the different exposure to movements and training approach. We did that with Third Monkey. Right. So you're going to face different foot positions, different squat variations that you may not have trained previously, but we were forced to get creative to target certain limitations with limited weight, but still get a potent training response because it was intense for your central nervous system, general adaptation syndrome.
That's right. So speaking of adaptation, let's just let's narrow let's give a little bit of focus, Tex.
Okay.
What are the adaptations we tend to look for out of a training program? Strength?
Yes. Simply when we say adaptation, we're referring to strength.
Like high level adaptation. Strength and then power.
Coordination and speed. And think of power and speed as the coordination, strength coordination as well. Then we can have, so those are more neurological, they're expressions. And then we have physical adaptations, structural adaptations, where we have the increase cross-sectional size of the muscle.
Hypertrophy.
So think hypertrophy, and there's different forms of hypertrophy.
And then there's aerobic, glycolytic capacity, aerobic capacity.
Oh, yeah. So then you get into the conditioning, the metabolic side of things. So lots of different options that we can specifically target with the body weight training. Right.
So your aerobic base can be done in body weight. It's called a jogging.
Oh, soft J?
Yeah, soft J. Your glycolytic can be done with increased tempos of jogging, dare I say running, and or sprinting. And then even intensity forms of sprint, which are maximal sprint output with maximal recovery in between efforts, hit that creatine phosphate, ATC.
Oh, yeah.
Or ATP, excuse me, system. So you can train those energy systems in body weight with just running. Right? So those are amazing tools to train those energy systems. Now you can use
assuming he's moving to a place that he's freed up outside. Because it is.
Yeah, who knows? Okay.
It's getting cold out there.
So let's say you don't have that. Let's say then you can use things like burpees that are body weight to task those energy systems.
Yeah, and use rest times to then target or the intensity in which you move.
So this could be 20 seconds on, 10 seconds off. It could be 30 seconds on, 2 minutes off. So those are two, that's using burpees.
Or 7 straight minutes.
Yeah.
You remember that?
I do. What'd you get?
You know what? I can find that. I'm sure it's all online.
Yeah, I think I got 2, 3. What'd you get?
2 or 3.
Give me a ballpark. What you got?
I have no idea.
You think
Generally don't remember.
105?
I don't remember.
Because I got 106. Don't look it up. I don't have time for this. Okay, so burpees. 7 minutes of burpees would be then like you could do that.
Or apartment stairs.
Yeah.
We're working in. We're up in a city.
But these things are ways to work those energy systems, which are just one aspect of training. In fact, I'd say, man, of a bodyweight protocol, it can't be the whole thing, because that's where you get into this overuse and you will get a detraining effect and you will compromise your gains.
Oh yeah,
Because you're gonna get the wrong training effect after prolonged exposure to that. So let's say over the week, that type of training, you want to try and maybe accumulate over the week an hour of that.
Yeah, it's a good general. As our episode with Dr. Keith Barr, he also said within that, not just accumulate an hour of steady. One of those minutes
Should be like red line. Yeah.
As pushing the ability of your heart.
Yeah.
Stress.
So let's call that, what do you want to call that? Conditioning?
Yeah, let's just call it.
And that can be like, that's your mountain climbers. That's like your body weight cardio movements. 1 hour throughout the week with at least, man, how would you do that? 10 minutes at a time, 6 days a week, 15 minutes at a time, 20 minutes at a time, something like that. But each one of those doses, you want to get like, you need to get an interval in there of like red line.
Oh yeah. And I would spread the red line where Dr. Keith Barr suggested at least one. That was his. We have 7 days, and at least one of those should do it. I would spread that across, 1 to 2.
Yeah, a week. But not like 6, not every single day.
No. And then, but still not the moderate pace.
Yeah,
every
the no
single
man's
day
land.
either.
Yeah. So you need variance in those.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's your cardio. What about body weight, like strength movements, right? We want to focus on getting strong with a squat, a bench, a hinge.
Okay. Well, this is
Like these are like, how are we going to replace squatting, deadlifting, pressing, bench pressing, and barbell shoulder pressing?
Well, we now need to look at movement versus these specific exercises.
Okay.
Movements that you were suggesting. And now we can take into our consideration our primal movement patterns.
Okay.
So we have 7 primal movement patterns. And when we say primal, we are referring to our foundational movements versus primal like
Caveman, Gronk.
Gronk.
Well, Gronk and Gronk are both accurate.
Oh, he's an amazing athlete. Anyway, so these 7 foundational movements, so rather than, and this is what we did very well with our third monkey. Okay, we're taking the barbell back squat. What's the action of the hip? So we're essentially hinging here with our hips. So we need to find a movement that can hinge. Will it be to the 315-pound barbell back squat? No. But how do we express and create as much power within that hinge that we can?
So you got to squat jump. Or depth jump.
Or depth jump. I would suggest the squat jump for our people, or even get creative. And if we mentioned apartment earlier, running stairs, now I'm powering, I'm bounding up my stairs.
Like a frog leaping.
Like a frog. For max efforts, could be 3 in a row to equal a 3 rep max. So 3 maximum, how far up within that I can get. So that's where we can sub the movement of squat jumps for squat or bounding jump, because it's the same action of our pelvis, of our hips. But I don't need the external stress of a barbell as much as we love it.
So you're hinging along kind of like that vertical axis, right? With your primal X, which would be our squat. Now, what about would you say a broad jump or consecutive broad jumping would be more akin to like a deadlift?
Maybe. I guess you're pushing back into the posterior chain. So if we want to jump horizontally rather than vertically, then we get the opportunity to bias the posterior chain just like that deadlift. So now I'm still hinging at the hips, but now the recruitment pattern would be different, but it's still our primal X, the hinge, the squat.
So these could be, let's say, like if you're going to do an intensity day, which would be like your heavy squats or heavy deadlifts.
Yeah.
That's going to be these 1, 2, or 3 consecutive jumps. Would you agree?
I'd say up to 5.
Up to 5.
Yeah, but that 5 is going to be very high skill. It's a high fight.
How many
Just
sets?
Expect, 3 to 5.
Yeah, so
but then
total jumps that you're going to accumulate?
Less
20,
than 15.
15, 20?
Yeah.
Okay.
Certainly less than 20.
Okay.
But yeah, if we're hitting 25, we're probably
Too high.
We're probably at that borderline. Anything more than 25, we're not going to do filthy 50
Right.
Ever. But so talking about maximal efforts, like I'm approaching it like it's a 5 RM deadlift fight. I want to think of that as my 5 consecutive broad jumps as my same fight.
Yeah, and I think that's what's important about the stair leaping or the consecutive broad jumping. Like, you're not chipping away. It's not like chopping a tree down with each rep. You know what I mean?
I got a quote. I got to quote the great coach Bill Walsh. So San Francisco 49ers championships, Jerry Rice, Joe Montana, Steve Young. He said a quote, and I believe it was referencing Jerry Rice. He was, show me the man that can jump 10 feet one time versus the man that can jump 1 foot 10 times, and I'll will him to replicate. So that's digging deep from a lesson from Ruiz about the true replication of speed.
Right. So that is when we're talking about using these jumps for strength and power development, they have to be executed with that level of intensity and concentration. It can't be 100. It can't be 50.
And it's not going to feel like a lot. But again, your feelings will lie to you. If we are targeting your central nervous system and we're going in with the mindset to fight reversibility of my abilities, then we're going to be in a good position versus just more.
Okay. So now I'm going to transfer primals real quick.
Okay.
Can this also be done with upper body pushing?
I believe. So then we'd have to.
So think of like a dynamic kind of push-up, essentially, like a plyo style push-up.
Right.
Would it be the same execution and like total volume loading, 1 through 5? Try not to get over 25.
I'd take that approach.
Yeah.
And you don't want it to sneak up where it may not feel like a lot, but then your muscles, your tendons, the things that do break could come into effect and break because not your emotional intensity, the true intensity that they can bear. So if we're using an explosive push-up, a dynamic push-up, we do have these in our program. So say a couple approaches that somebody can take this, they start on the ground, and then there's 2, let's just call them chairs, how high are the chairs we're sitting
20
in?
inches.
20 inches? Okay. So then there's 2, this is a good goal, 20-inch chairs in my kitchen that I'm going to perform an explosive push-up from the ground to the 20-inch. That'd be boom, max. And then I want you to...
And even if that's too much, Tex, what you could do in between those chairs is elevate the surface in between it with whatever. Yeah. So let's say you do an 8-inch rise. So you also have an increased torso angle, which makes the load a little less, but allows you to move faster, which is important in this type of work to get up to that 20-inch.
So that's one option, explosive, and we want you to step down if that's the variation you're going for, only the concentric. I believe we're getting to muscle contractions next.
Yeah.
So just think movement first, and then we'll get into muscle contractions. But that is an explosive one that you cannot physically do more than 3, 5 in a row. And then that 25 max rep, maximal expression of your abilities, then you got to rest because that is plenty of stress.
So that's one. Primal was the squat, which is the hips. If your hips were a bowl of soup and you're holding a bowl of soup, it's tilting the soup and pouring it out the front lip. Then I skipped selfishly to upper body, which is pushing, which is going to be think like a bench press or a push-up or a vertical press or like a shoulder press. And a way I'm not a fan of the handstand push-ups. If you have to kip, if you can do strict, you may be okay vertically pushing that way, but you're not going to be you can't get dynamic loading there. Right?
No.
But what you can do is like a pike push-up where your feet are still on the ground, think and lower down to a tripod, and you can start to work dynamically that way, lowering down, to where your head becomes a depth gauge, or even elevating so your head can fit between and your hands can lower, but your feet are still on the ground, right? Your tush is in the air.
Yeah.
You're pressing up vertically in that manner. So that could be a way to get some vertical pressing.
Yes. So the important thing, and what we're doing, is giving representations that are mimicking the same actions.
Mm-hmm.
So we're subbing movement. We're training movement versus finding different variations of a bench press.
Mm-hmm.
So it's still a horizontal push with those explosive push-ups. With the pike or the handstand push-ups, it's still a vertical push overhead. With our jumps, whether it's horizontally or vertically, it's still a hinge, an X-axis squat, or what would a deadlift hinge be. So it's the same movement. We're just taking away the implement. And people would only get, the easiest is going to be the X-axis to mimic. The most, if we look at a lot of the CrossFit competitions and movement workouts experiences, those are primarily X-axis of rotation. But we can certainly think any form of lunge. I would love the opportunity for the lunge to just start taking over training, because man, unilateral movements will take you a long way.
Yeah. Go ahead.
You want to explain the lunge?
Yeah, sure. So lunge now, with that bowl of soup analogy, that's where we're going to be twisting. So the lunging movement. Everyone, I think, knows the lunge. Now, we're very particular with how we want you to do that, because we want to best replicate and pattern the sprinting motion and mechanics for a field sport athlete, assuming straight ahead speed, right? But as you go ahead and you step forward into a lunge and you lower that back leg and that front foot goes forward, and that right or that forward leg knee elevates, your hips are going to twist and tilt a little bit. That twisting motion is along the y-axis, right? And that's going to be like a imaginary line going through the top of your head and down in between your hips, and that's going to kind of rotate along there. So that's your lunge or your Y. Same principles apply here, right? Same volume, same loading per leg. So 3 right, 3 left.
If
5
we're
right,
gonna,
5 left.
Yeah, if we're going to be explosive. But now if we're targeting more hypertrophy.
Well, in general with hypertrophy, that's kind of like the easy one, isn't it?
He's hoping to maintain his gains.
Yeah.
Gains in our mind and respect is performance.
Yeah.
But
Good point.
gains in many listeners out there, or Jack Street crew, it's more of the size and what you'd be able to see and feel. So then with the lunge is a great tool where a lot of volume can go a long way.
Yeah, and because you're going unilaterally, dominance phenomenon is removed. So you can't use compensation of left and right to do more than you really should be able to do unilaterally. So this is probably a more I guess I see where you're going now. You're going to have to change your mindset from a squat or X dominant training system to now a Y and, spoiler alert, Z dominant. So lunging body weight.
Because a lot of us, I'm probably one of the few that can lunge near squatting ability, but you can handle less load. So now I can implement my backpack, my chair, a child, and start.
But that's not body weight. That's kind of cheating. But I see what you're saying, though. Which
we can,
with some very readily available tools their cinder block or whatever.
Yes.
Those incremental increases in weight that would not be enough to drive a significant training stimulus for a squat
or a deadlift. Yeah.
Now are for a lunge.
And fighting reversibility.
So now you're lunging, and that can be done in your traditional 3x7, 5x7, 3x12, probably tapping out if you're doing volume at about 70 reps per leg. There's no reason really to go beyond that, right?
Oh, yeah, I'm not mad at that.
Yeah, maybe you would, maybe you wouldn't. But beyond that, the reason we say that is you start to change the training adaptation to muscular endurance, which could have a bit of a more potent reversibility effect towards your strength and power.
Oh, yeah, because then we're getting into conversion of muscle
fiber type conversion. So that's why we want to monitor the amount of volume you do per attempt and overall volume in a particular movement pattern. So I would say 75 reps feels it right-ish, but that can these are guardrails, right? So because I don't want people to be well, I followed Johnny Watt and we did 250 reps.
Well, there are no rules on Johnny Wad.
It's a street fight. And the same principles apply to your step up, which is the unilateral movement. Like it's ultimately you have that stairwell. It'd be doing like single leg stair climbing is going to be your step up. And that's if you take that hip and we evaluate that hip action, it's now taking that bowl of soup and it's going from left to right, spilling, like swishing side to side as the iliac crest, or that, like if you touch your hip, the bony part, as that one elevates on the right side, the left one compensates and lowers commensurately on the left side. And that's your primal movement pattern for the Z.
Yeah, like
axis.
we're marching in place. Imagine that. That's the best. That's a great, not the best. It's a great representation of the Z tilt.
Yeah. So same principles apply and patterns apply to the lunge than it does to the step. So that's how we would do that. And you can even do those dynamically, assuming you have like lunge jumping.
Oh yeah, big time.
Right.
That will require a lot more coordination. And then again, I'm getting ahead of us, but we then have planes of motion. Is this a good transition?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So we talked about movement where we can look at the action of the barbell or the weight that we would do. And our objective is to then mimic it with our body weight. Now we have the added stress of planes of motion. You want to explain the three planes of motion?
3 planes of motion. Plane, not like a hamburger. First off, I don't like plain hamburger
Plane,
guys.
you mean like Gerard Butler's new movie coming out?
No, I mean like plain, like your wardrobe. My burns are off, dude.
It's a great day, guys. We should record a few more podcasts.
I mean plain, like a flat and level surface, an imaginary surface that a body can travel along. And there are 3 planes in the Cartesian system, people. These are the 3 dimensions, if you will. So there is the sagittal plane, which would, if you're looking at a Michelangelo's, what do you call the guy? This guy? I'm doing like where he does the starfish, the snow angel. Yeah, Michelangelo's Perfect Man or whatever. So if you were looking,
it's Da Vinci.
Da Vinci.
Michelangelo's David.
Oh, I'm thinking of the Ninja Turtle. Sorry, Tex. That's not funny. You're not even giving me a chuckle out of that. Listeners are laughing.
We don't make fun of the Ninja Turtles.
Fair enough. You're cutting a body into left and right halves. So it would be the plane that would, for training, is the plane that would cut your body into a left and right half. And that is like basically traveling along up and down a hallway.
Ooh, I can't pronounce this, but it's a Vitruvian man.
The Vitruvian man, of course. Everybody knows that. So that's your sagittal plane. You travel forwards and backwards. Then you have your frontal plane. That's the one that's going to cut you into a front half and a back half, and you're going to travel along that laterally. So that's like if you're shuffling left or right, or any sort of like lateral flexion extension through the spine, jumping jacks. That's all going to be predominantly frontal plane movement. And then finally, you have the transverse plane, which would bisect you into upper and lower halves. And we would classify rotational types of movements that would separate your shoulders and hips and have independent separation of those would be movement along that transverse plane.
Or just your whole body.
Yeah, or your body rotating as well.
Yeah.
Right. The reason we like to break those planes out is because the nervous system responds differently to movements along those planes. And they're like parallel planes. Like the parasagittal plane would be a plane that's next to that primary plane, or paratransverse or parafrontal. And then there's the multiplanal movements, which are a mixture of all, which really all training is for the most part multiplanar in nuance, if Levi Garrett was on this call. However, when we say that, we're talking predominant, like what is the dominant plane of motion?
Right.
Now we can apply these movements in the volumes and loading patterns that we talked about previously along these planes of motion. So we're typically lunging, for example, sagittally.
Right. Forwards.
Now we can lunge laterally and add rotation to lunge, or we can like drunk step lunge and zigzag, crossover lunge. All of these things are ways that we are not going to be accustomed to moving, that is going to require your nervous system to drive an adaptation.
Yep. Rotating, lunge jumps, rotating 90 degrees to the left and right.
And then even like lateral stair climbing, if you do have access to stairs, or lateral box step-ups.
Yeah.
These are just ways that you're going to find are more challenging. And because they're more challenging, they drive a training response.
Right. With less reps.
Right. So this is now going to make you stronger out of the other end of this. It's unlikely, Jim. However,
well, we could argue he's more coordinated.
Right. Which you may, in doing a lot of this, you may see deficits in absolute strength, but what you ultimately are doing as well is you're raising the roof.
Yeah.
Once you get the barbell again, you are now more coordinated. You have a higher level of neural efficiency, and you theoretically could have a higher level of strength from the same type of training response or training stimulus you had leading up to this event. That's the beautiful thing about it.
Yes.
Now, do you want to get in the final piece?
Yeah. So we got athleticism that was moving through space, that we're combining primals and planes of motion. If we get into Field Strong, Bedrock, the programs that really focus on unlocking athletic potential or enhancing athleticism, they dive into primals, planes, and now we can get very specific. This is now for not the novice athlete, but we can get into muscle contractions.
Right. So this is where with some of my buddies who I know, like during the first shutdown text, like I got them going on some eccentrics.
Oh, great. Okay. So now we have 3 muscle
Go ahead. Go. I can add it to the end.
No, 3 muscle contractions. All muscle contractions happen during movement, but when training, we can identify, lock in. Let's see what you did there. We can lock in on specific actions and then target them with a prescription of execution. Most common, where we said the sagittal plane is the most common plane, the most common muscle contraction training is concentric.
That's right.
So think that the explosive jumps that we did, the concentric is going to be the shortening of the muscle. So explosive. If you just hit push-ups, that's focusing on a concentric action, getting in there. Then what we can do is also target eccentric, which is a lengthening. So there are different types of eccentric muscle contractions, and we want to target 2 kinds, especially with our lockdown training. The first is going to be just simple eccentric, where we're controlling our body.
Right. Where the load or force, we're managing that load or force, and we're allowing those muscles to lengthen.
If my tempo to elongate is 8 seconds, I personally am counting and controlling 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
and you can
7,
reverse 8. It at any time should you want to.
And then you can contract and reverse that. So imagine now I'm in my push-up position and I'm lowering down for 8. That would be a representation of our eccentric. Now we have a different kind of eccentric. Force. And this is something to progress to, but a forced eccentric, a true eccentric.
Where despite all your concentric efforts to shorten that muscle, the force applied to the lever or system that's trying to shorten exceeds its ability to overcome it. So you're being forced.
This is if you have a partner, you and your training partner.
I got some solo as well, I'll share with you.
Okay.
But for lower.
All right, to give examples to paint the picture of true eccentrics before we provide more, an easy example would be a chest fly. So if partner Luke is laying down on the ground and he brings both of his palms together in front of him, and he's holding with the best of his pecs ability, that's sunken chest.
Could eat a bowl of soup out of.
But he's holding both hands, straight arms, and his pecs are flying. They're crushing together. And I, the training partner, come in and put both my hands inside his wrists, and I perform now my own chest fly, and I'm separating both of Luke's arms. He's doing his damnedest to hold the clap hands, but I'm overpowering and lowering his hands. A true lengthening, a true eccentric is a force exceeds the resistance. And
so you could do that single arm as well.
Yep, you can do that single arm. You can do that with a vertical pull-up. So if you got one of those, oh God, this would be stupid and dangerous, but those pull-up bars in the kitchen, don't do that if you got a secure pipe maybe in your basement. But imagine Luke is now holding a good, tall, pretty posture in his pull-up position, and I step in and rip and pull him down with
Rip's not like the right term.
Right.
It would be like kind of gently apply and steadily increase.
Yeah. We do have
resistance.
a YouTube video for the manual resistance pull-up on how to do it properly and safely for training partners that I will include in the show notes. Mm-hmm. So those are some examples.
Yeah. So what I pushed off to my buddies, they loved it, was like an incline push-up. Right. So go back to your chair.
Okay.
So you're ultimately on a chair, right? In like an elevated push-up position. And then let's say you have 2 chairs. You're going to just take one hand off and try to lower single arm on a chair. And like you'll hit a point, you'll be controlled eccentric, but then you're going to hit a point where it's forced eccentric.
Yeah.
Right. And then you have that off arm to spot and save you. And then you dynamically come out of there and you rinse and repeat and then pop off and blast. And then you go for you try to get volume push-ups, you get 6 or 7 because you're fatigued out of it and you have that huge eccentric loading.
Yeah. And more difficult to do alone, but training partner there, you can almost do, you can do many of the movements. We could do butterflies, clamshells, a lot of hip action, some hamstring curls, bicep curls, leg extension, and probably my favorite is an armadillo. Imagine an iso hold using our trunk, our hips, our abs. And the trick, though, anytime you do a true eccentric, it must always, and this is an absolute, it must always be followed up with a concentric and explosive dynamic action. Mm-hmm. So if you do the true eccentric push-ups that Luke was explaining, immediately drop down and just hit 1, 2, and 3 quick regular push-ups. If it's pull-ups, the same thing, one true eccentric partner pull-up, and then even if it's assisted with that same partner, hit 1, 2, or 3 pull-ups. Mm-hmm. Then with our hip actions, our hamstring that we mentioned, you can do explosive lunge jumps or quick feet up your stairs real quick. If y'all are working out in a freaking stairwell, that sounds pretty cool, but sucks at the same time. Always follow it with the explosive concentric. And the final muscle contraction, and oft overlooked, isometrics. This could be holding and maintaining different hip angles within there. It could
bottom
be
squat hold,
halfway squat hold. So finding and set and targeting different ranges of motion that you're weak at, because let's use this opportunity to get good at what we suck at, that are giving you fits. Find those ranges of motion or those weak points within a full range of motion. You're thinking your sticking point on your squat or your bench press. It's a great opportunity and time to sit in an isometric hold at your failing point. And it could be single arm, could be double.
Lunge position, step up position, pistol hold, single leg hold. And then adding even a little bit of spice to that, if you do have access to a partner, they can apply gentle force to you in multiple planes, like by just nudging or pulling or whatever. And your goal is to just be a statue. Yeah. And like they're not trying, this is where you like thin line between being a good partner and being a dick. Like you want to do enough to hit that boiling point, but never the breaking point where you're going to compromise the position. And go ahead. Final
isometric, and we do even utilize this when we have full gym access, and this is going to help your deadlift. Let's find something that is stuck in the ground. It could be the stairwell railings, if we're in that stairwell again, or just like if I'm in my apartment balcony, the balcony itself, something semi off the ground. So targeting different angles similar to our isometric I mentioned earlier, but think of like the rack pull.
Isometric rack pull.
Isometric rack pull, but the bar doesn't go anywhere. With third monkey, what we did was with the toe strap. Just put the toe strap underneath the feet, grip and find your angle until your knees are at the right angle, and just grip it and rip it for 15 count. Until your head pops like a zit.
So there's plenty of opportunity there, right? And then one thing that we, I think would be, if you're gonna make an investment and it's not gonna be like equipment like that you're gonna trash, like cinder blocks or something, maybe consider BFR straps. because you can apply the BFR strap to literally everything we said, and there is a training response there that will be beneficial, and again, continue to blunt the detraining effect. Like, that is the best you can do, Jim, is take these highly nearly, like the high neurological stimuli of like these multiplanar movements, these unilateral movements, things you've never done before. Apply the right volumes to it, and then get some volume work in as well with things that you're more comfortable with to get like that hypertrophy or pump.
Right.
But doing those with your limbs occluded or with blood flow restriction training. And we just had an episode.
Yes, that is episode 422.
422 on BFR to give you more details on that. And man, like, there's really nice equipment. There's more affordable equipment. Like, you get what you pay for, but they all will be more beneficial working that stuff in than not. And I would say you would do this. So you're going to hit, let's say you're going to train 5 days a week or whatever, right? Like, however many days a week you're going to hit. You want to hit all primals, all planes of motion. You can vary muscle contractions however you'd like. 1 week of isometrics if you want.
I quickly on that, I'd say 2 weeks, you focus on one. So that would be 2 weeks of eccentrics across the board. 1 week of general movement, fitness.
Standard movement that you're used to.
Then concentric, then isometric, then fitness, then concentric to finish.
So that's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 weeks. There you go.
Yeah.
And you know the patterns to use. You can apply BFR to 3 of the 5 training days. Let's say half your training days.
Oh yeah.
Right? Like that's a good principle if you're new to it. And then the big thing on like the sprinting and plyos is respecting that it doesn't feel hard and just keeping the volume low.
Oh yeah.
So you want to also be alternating whatever, like a volume day and an intensity day between your primal movements. So your squat volume, squat intensity, not necessarily back to back, but like as they come up in sequence. So squat, step, lunge, push, pull, squat, step, lunge, push, pull. Let's say is your 5-day sequence, or maybe it's squat, push 1 day, lunge, pull 1 day, step, pull 1 day. Like, have a sequence. It doesn't matter, bro. Like, there's an optimal way to do it, but like with body weight, you're already in a deficit. Mm-hmm. So like now it's just about getting the right movements in the right planes of motion, the right distribution, and then alternating intensity and volume to balance it out.
Yes. And if you just want us to do the hard work for you, go spend $50 at Home Depot.
Yeah.
If
sign
you
up
are
for Third Monkey.
Forced in your apartment, just don't buy your couch yet. You're moving, dude.
Yeah.
Lay down a little tarp. Like, what's that movie with Christian Bale? He's got tarps all over the apartment. And then...
No clue. The Machinist?
American Psycho.
Oh.
Yeah. Then just beat up with cinder blocks. But you don't have to worry about cleaning up.
There you go. This was a huge deep dive in what you could potentially do with body weight.
Well...
Is this the ultimate deep dive into body weight training?
Is that a catchy, clicky title?
I don't know. Maybe.
We need to get better at the Muscle and Fitness magazine titles.
I know. Just get some abs already so we can put them on the thumbnail, the cover of the YouTube.
Why don't you just Photoshop them on?
Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for tuning in and listening to us talk about how you could theoretically body weight train to minimize the detraining effects associated with lockdown. If you have a question.
Yeah, and if you're traveling on holiday, go ahead and apply these.
Oh, yeah. And so like another thing, like if it's a 1 or 2, like if it's a week, you can't do it wrong. Just do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We're also like thinking longitudinally, like 6 to 8 to 10 weeks, this application. Mm-hmm. Like if you're just on vacation for a week or two, just hammer it. Would you say?
Yeah. Do what you don't normally do.
Yeah.
And you'll have a great training response.
Yeah.
And you'll have to do less work.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
It's all new.
That's a good point, Tex. And maybe we should have led with that. And that's very important. Okay.
Well, I'm glad you led us to that.
Hey, you're welcome. Thank you, Tex. Thank you, Tex.
All right. Good talk. See you out there.
Call us 929-464-4640. That's 929-ING-ING-0. Leave us a message after the beep, and we'll get to your question as soon as we can. Until next time.
Now it's time for you to empower your performance. Head to powerathletehq.com/training to choose from a number of programs to meet your specific performance goals. And if you like to break a mental sweat too, visit academy.powerathletehq.com and become a real stakeholder in you or your athlete's success. Until next time, bye!